Welcome to the July meeting of the Planning Committee. For those at the back, more than anybody else, members of the public, can I just introduce who we are? I'm Brian Morby, I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. On my left is Richard Lewis, who's the Head of Development Management. On his left is Paul Wheeldon, who's Head of Transportation and Highways, or something like that. Over there at the dais is Norman Jones, who's a team leader in the Planning Department. On my right is Rachel Beale, who's clerk to the meeting, and on her right is Tim James, who's the Assistant Chief Legal Officer for the Council and who will advise us on various issues relating to regulations and legal matters. The rest are members of the Planning Committee. So, number one then, attendance and apologies. The attendance list is circulating. Rachel, can you read out the apologies we've received, please?
We've received apologies from Councillors Pam Cameron, Alan Faeser, Barry Taylor, Wayne Tomlinson and Neil Waite.
Are there any other apologies members wish to give? Can I just mention that at the last meeting, Councillor Wayne Tomlinson gave his apologies, but I forgot to ask Rachel to read out the list of apologies, and therefore the fact that Councillor Tomlinson had apologised for his absence at that meeting wasn't part of the webcast, and he's asked that that be corrected, which I'm pleased to do with my apology for failing to do that at the time. Two is declarations of interest. Tim, can you give advice, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just remind members that they should note any interest, please, in the register that's being circulated with the attendance register. The following interests, Chair, I'm aware of. Item 4 on the agenda, the application at Lantarnum. I think Councillor Powell and Councillor Ashley, you both wish to declare personal interests in relation to that application, the reason being that you're members of Cwmbran Community Council who were consulted in relation to it. Would that be correct? Yes. And then item 6 on the agenda, application in relation to Fairwater Shops. Again, Councillors Ashley and Councillor Powell, same situation. Personal only interests, I understand, on the basis that you're members of the Consulted Community Council. Is that correct? Yes. Thank you. And then application 5 at Lanaravan. Councillors Crick and Councillor Nigel Davis, I understand you wish to declare personal non-prejudicial interest in relation to that application, reason being that you're both members of the relevant community council who were consulted in relation to it. Is that correct, please?
That's correct, yes.
Yes, thank you both. I don't think there are any other interests, Chair, that I've been made aware of. Thank you.
You're happy that that covers all the declarations of interest that members wish to make? Okay, you're happy to note those? Good. Okay, item 3 then, minutes of the planning meeting held on the 16th of June, which we'll go through for accuracy in the first place. Page 1. And page 2, which is number 6. Next page, number 7. Page 8.
Move those minutes, Chair.
You happy to agree? That's been moved by Councillor Seaborn, seconded by Councillor Constance. Is everybody happy that they are a true record of the meeting? Thank you very much. So let's move on to item 4, which is planning application 10/P/00443, redevelopment of existing dwelling to create new dwelling at Draper's Lock Holding, Pentrell Lane, Lantarnum. And Norman will just give us a little introduction to that particular item. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. As members will note, this application has been long running. It was first reported to committee back in December 2010 when it was agreed to grant planning permission subject to a Section 106 agreement. There's been long running discussions with the details of that agreement, and however, since the original resolution, there's been a number of changes to council policy, namely the introduction of the planning guidance in relation to planning obligations requiring applications to be reported following any delay of 6 months or over. And also, since this application, there's been the adoption of the conservation area along the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal. Also, the LDP has been passed in December 2013, and obviously Planning Policy Wales has been updated since that time. However, the circumstances surrounding the proposal haven't changed. What the application proposed was a replacement dwelling from the previous caravan, or the current caravan, which constitutes a dwelling for planning purposes. And what is proposed is a relatively modest two-bedroomed cottage, which is based on an example of a cottage along the canal near Newport. The Conservation Officer is satisfied, and as are all the other consultees. So there's no change, and our recommendation is for approval as before. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Norman. Does anybody have any questions in the first place? Any comments? Is somebody prepared to move? It's been moved that we approve the application, subject to the various conditions. Is that seconded? Second. So it's moved by Councillor Burnett, seconded by Councillor Crick, and various others. Ready to vote? All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 5, planning application 15/P/00258, the residential development at the former Commodore Hotel, Mill Lane, Llanarafon. This is a matter which has been to planning committee in terms of outline planning permissions some time ago and approved. We're dealing here with reserve matters. Hopefully members will understand what's being proposed, but if you have any questions, now's your opportunity, please. Councillor Crick?
Yes, I wasn't sure if Norman was first going to go through it or not, but I've got 2 questions I'd like to raise from the documentation that we've had, just for clarity, really. And it's on page 28, the reserved matters and the requirements. The first one was in relation to the fact that it was suggested that there should be, I'm looking for the actual page I'm looking for. If you move to page 30, one of the things is number 13. No garage shown on the approved plan shall be maintained for the parking of the vehicle and shall not be converted to habitable accommodation. If someone wanted to do that, presumably there would be a clause that would be referred to in their deeds, which made it quite clear that that could not happen. Is that the case?
No, it would be subject to a condition restricting the conversion of that, and that's the intention of that condition 13, although on reading it now, it doesn't appear to be worded properly. So it should be restricted that no garage shown on the approved plans shall be, it should be retained for the parking of vehicles. So we subject to committee's agreement, we will be looking to amend that so that should a conversion take place, we would require prior approval. And again, that would normally be based on the adequacy of the parking for that particular dwelling.
So it's not something that's written into the deeds or anything like
No,
that?
it wouldn't be written into the deeds, not necessarily. That would be a matter for the developer to consider.
Well spotted, Councillor Crick. I think all we need to do really is agree that the word no be substituted by the word any.
Okay. The other query I had was along similar lines, really, and there's a reference there to there being no extensions built on the houses. I'm looking for it now and I can't find where I've picked it out, but it does say that it wouldn't be possible to extend the houses.
Yeah.
And I wondered, given the laws on extensions now, just how that sits with that. And again, would it be clear in people's deeds, or how would they be aware, say in 10 years' time, that in fact they're not allowed to extend?
Yeah, again, that is a subject purely of a planning condition. And in relation to certain of the plots, there are, if you like, dual elevations, some facing private roads, and others which would be the primary elevation. The legislation, as you're aware, changed a couple of years ago, so we normally wouldn't be able to restrict those extensions on non-primary elevations, but due to the constraints of some of the plots, they are restricted in space, and extensions could be regarded as constituting overdevelopment. If we didn't have that condition, we wouldn't be able to control it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You ready to deal with the matter, Councillor Seaborn?
If no one else has got any questions, I'd like to move the recommendation subject to any enforcements or whatever put on it.
So it's been proposed that we approve the recommendations subject to the correction that we've already identified and the conditions in general. That's seconded by Councillor Constance. Are you ready to vote? Yeah. All those in favour, please show. That too is unanimous. Thank you very much. So item 6 now is the replacement of a 10-metre monopole with an 11.7-metre monopole and one additional cabinet behind the bus stop at Fairwater Shops. Richard, thank you.
Yeah, you'll notice a slightly different recommendation on this. This is a replacement mast, but it's permitted development. But permitted development is subject to them first applying to the local authority as to whether we require to approve the site and design, only the site and design of the mast. Now, in this particular case, we're recommending that there is no need to approve that because the site and design is already okay. It's simply a slightly higher mast than was there before. But there's a restricted deadline on this, and we have to make a decision prior to the next committee meeting. But the actual publicity deadline isn't until after this committee, so we can't say that we won't get any comments in on this. So the reason for the recommendation is really to allow me to make that decision, taking into account any representations that are received, but making that decision before the deadline date. If we don't do that, then they would be able to do it under default anyway. So it's number one, making sure committee are happy in principle to approve, and if so, allow me to make that final decision once the publicity requirements are done. The only other thing to mention is the Community Council. They have got their comments in, and they've raised no objection to the application. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions, please? Councillor Seaborn?
If there's no questions, Chair, as Ward Councillor, I would like to move the recommendation and give plenary powers to Richard to act upon whatever he's got.
Okay, is that seconded? Fine. Now, anybody wish to debate the matter? Right, so that's Councillor Burnett.
Just a comment. I mean, I had a word with Richard earlier, we were talking about something else, and this came at the conversation, and it's been so many years since we heard about maths. It's nice to see one back now and again to raise a few issues, that's all.
Okay, so it was moved by Councillor Seaborn and seconded by Councillor Davis, I think, and a number of others. Are you ready to vote? All those in favour, please show. That too is unanimous, so that's been approved, and the delegated powers given to Richard to deal with the matter in the event that comments are made in due course. Fine, thank you. So, there being no other business other than the date of the next meeting, which is Tuesday the 18th of August. I'm pretty sure that meeting is going to take place despite it being in August, because there are items already earmarked for that agenda. So hope to see you then, folks. Thanks very much.